If you guys will read it with me out loud, we're going to start it here. But God, who is rich in mercy, for his great love, wherewith he loved us, even when we were dead in sins, hath quickened us together with Christ. By grace ye are saved. All right. Anybody know what quickened means?
Speeding up.
It's a little bit different in the Bible. What do you think? Brought together. Quickened in the Bible kind of, especially in here, it kind of means bringing new life to something. And there's a few different kind of definitions, but it's basically say we were dead in sins. Even when we were dead in sins, have quickened us, so brought us new life and brought us together with Christ. For by grace you are saved. So I just thought that was really cool. So,
Y'all have to like the walls.
Yeah.
All right. Danny, y'all want like a note sheet? I actually made some of these tonight. Is anybody? All right. So Luke, I'm going to trust you to hand these out and to not get near to anybody. Okay. And does anybody need a pen? Needs one? Okay. So Gavin, come hand these out. Okay.
6 feet, Mason.
All right.
Good job.
I need like one of those claw arm things.
Yeah, you do. That would be kind of cool.
Okay.
You're not gonna catch that.
I just had that.
But then I can't get no one this one.
All right. While they're handing those out, you can go and turn over to 1 Peter chapter 3. Or 1, chapter 1. I'm sorry, I've been doing that all day. 1 Peter chapter 1.
I take the orange on top page.
Ooh, I haven't wrote forever. Me either.
I do. I can write it.
Okay.
I didn't use it. Because you were handing out pen.
You have a pen? Yeah. Okay. See, I always forget to give myself a pen. That's why I have to do it. Okay, guys. So we're going to talk about this subject about growing in holiness. It's probably not something that you like to spend a lot of your time thinking about throughout the day, but it's one of the most important things that you'll do as a Christian. And I want this to become something that we really do make an important thing in our lives. Because you have, sorry, this heat's killing me here tonight. You have the moment of salvation where you get saved. And for a lot of people, they're good with just that. It's like, all right, I'm saved. I can just be me and keep on going. But you have so much that you need to do from the moment of salvation to the moment you get to heaven. No matter how that is. And what that is called is, and we're going to look at this word in a little bit, and it's not a word I expect you guys to, I hope that you know it, but it's a word I hope you learn to know, but it's called sanctification, and it's growing in holiness. It's about growing in your faith. But we're in verse 13 of chapter 1. Sorry, don't look at the back. See, I told you I've been doing that all day. It's 1 Peter chapter 1, 13 through 15. We're going to read these 3 verses. And then I just kind of want to walk through these a little bit and talk about it, and kind of what this means for you. Because there's a lot here that it means. There's a lot here that can help you as a believer. But does anybody want to read these 3 verses?
I'll do it.
Okay, all right. I like that excitement. 13 through 15.
And who is he will harm you if he be fallen?
Chapter 1. I'm sorry. I wrote that down wrong. It's chapter 1, 13 through 15. Gird? Yeah.
The
Loins.
of your mind be sober, and hope to the end for the grace that is be brought unto you at the revelations of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, not fashioning yourself according to the former lust in your ignorance, but as he which harm called you is holy. So be ye holy in all manner of conversations.
All right, thank you. That's a rough couple verses. That really is. And one of the things that we're looking at in this is so much of your growing your faith and becoming holier is a mental thing. I spend a lot of time talking to you guys about things you should do and things that you shouldn't do. But at the end of the day, the things that you do and the things that you don't do, they start up here. It starts up here with a desire to do it or a desire not to do it. So we're kind of looking at everything that we're going to talk about tonight. It looks at the mental part of growing in holiness and growing closer to God. So this first thing, gird up the loins of your mind. All right, so does anybody want to take just a wild guess of what that means? I get it. That's a rough, that was weird when Peter wrote it. So it's weird now.
To think.
To think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Make your brain bigger.
Make your brain bigger. That's the cousin of the right answer. You know, it's what it's talking about here is to gird up the loins. What that is talking about is back in biblical times, they used to wear these robes that would go down to their feet, and they were not the most comfortable things in the world, and they were not easy to move around with. So what they would do is they would actually, when they would gird up their loins, if they had to run or something like that, or had to move quickly, they would pull up their robe some, and they would tuck it in their belt. Because in their robe, they would have like a rope or something tied around their waist, and they would tuck it in there, and it would kind of free them up to move a little better. I know, that's weird, but that's what it means. That's how they would have to do whenever they were about to move around. So, this is talking about preparing your minds to move fast, to think and to think quickly. You know, we've been through a lot of like quarantine and stuff like that, and I've heard some of you guys say this yourselves. You haven't used your brain in months. That's one of the best reactions I've gotten out of y'all tonight. Is everybody's like, "Yes, I have not used my brain in forever." And so many times we kind of numb our brain out, and we find activities and stuff to do where we just shut down. I tell Alicia all the time. Like it's been a rough day. I just want to like put something on the TV and just shut my brain down. But see, this is telling us to do something different. We have to use our mind. We have to grow our brains, right? You know, we do have to grow that. We have to use our minds. We have to think about the things that we do. Because when you're faced with temptation, or an obstacle, in that moment, that's when you're your weakest. And that's when it's going to be the hardest for you to make the right decision. But if you make a decision before you ever get there, you know, this is how I'm going to react. This is what I'm going to do. If you go into it knowing what you're going to do, it prepares you to deal with that obstacle, with that distraction, that problem. So many times we think our Christian life is like we get saved right here. We feel like we get saved right here, and this is our moment of salvation, and then this is heaven up here. And we just think that it's just this, and that's it. We just continue to get closer to Jesus the whole time. But in reality, what happens is, you get saved, and you're moving up towards Jesus, and an obstacle happens, and you know what? You're not prepared for it. You hadn't thought about it. You hadn't thought about how you're going to handle this. and you make a wrong decision. And that happens. And then you start trying to do better. You start trying to do better. But hey, you've already made this wrong decision up here, right? So, you know, it's going to be easier to make it down here. So then you drop there. Okay. Did you make that happen?
No, I didn't.
So you make a wrong decision here and you drop down, and your entire faith looks like this, and then eventually you get to heaven. Now, there's going to be times when we make mistakes and when we fall and when we do things we shouldn't do. But the more you prepare, the better off you're going to be, and the less this line is going to look like this, and the more it's going to look like it's going up here to God. Are y'all with me on this? Okay. So, when you prepare ahead of time, when you gird up the loins of your mind, like I said, weird in Peter's day, even weirder 2,000 years to us. The thought's good though. The thought's killer because we need this. So he tells us that we have to mentally prepare to grow closer to God, to grow closer to Him. And growing closer to Him is going to use your mind. You can't just stumble through it. And a lot of times I'm worried that's kind of how we approach our Christian life. Is we get saved and we're just like, well, you know what? I'm just going to kind of keep being me, but I'm just going to start going to church some. I mean, that makes all the difference, right? You know, I'll read my Bible occasionally. I'll bless a meal. I'll pray when things get bad, especially. That's my faith. But it's so much more than that. Your Christian life is a day-to-day battle, and it's a day-to-day war that you're in. And you have to prepare yourself, and you have to make sure that you're ready. And it does. It starts up here. Because the bulk of the things that you do, the bulk of the things that you say that you should do or shouldn't do, man, it starts with a conscious decision. It starts with where your head is at. You know, I've heard a preacher say this one time, and he said, you know, garbage in, garbage out. So it does matter, the things that we put in, too, to our mind. It does matter. If, you know, and we're not even going to go down that road, but you have to prepare your mind. You have to be ready for that. So, this next part of the section of it. Hope to the end for the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. It's another rough section of scripture that, does anybody want to guess at what this is talking about here? This is rough, especially just to read off initially. Chantal, I see your wheels turning hard. Do you have an idea what this is?
Like you're longing for the end of being with Jesus, you're that's your end goal, so that's what you're working towards. That's what you're. I don't want to say hoping, but that's what.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. See, our hope is not in the fact that we're saved and we get to live our lives as saved people. All right, y'all realize that, right? It's our hope, and the whole purpose of being a Christian is not to be a Christian on earth. It's part of it, and it's a good aspect of it. Man, I love being a Christian here, and I love being able to live with you guys and serve with you guys. I love that. But my end goal, it's this point up here. It's getting to be with Jesus. And that's what this is talking about, is this brought unto us the revelation of Jesus Christ. Our salvation is completed when we get to be with Him. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to do anything to get there. Once you are saved, you are saved, all right? But every day of your life is another act of grace of God, giving you another day, of loving you another day, of giving you another breath. And then that salvation, what you are saved from, what you are saved for, is completed when we get to heaven and we get to be with Jesus. So, and this is that term I was talking about before, sanctification. And I know that is a $10 word, and it means basically just what we've been talking about. So here, all right, say it back to me, all right? Sanctification.
Sanctification.
Okay, so, all right, so if I say that word, y'all are going to know from now on I'm talking about growing in holiness, growing closer to God, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm not going to use it a whole bunch because that's a rough word, and I'm teaching you these now. But this is what sanctification is. It's your life as a Christian. It's everything from that moment of salvation to when you get to heaven. That is sanctification. For some people, it's bad. And it stinks. And your sanctification is like, it's just, it doesn't exist. For some people, man, they live good, faithful lives, and they serve God, and they live for Him. And when I think about this, I think about James Gentry. James has been one of the most holy men that I've ever met in my life. One of the most dedicated men to the church that's ever existed. His sanctification, dude, it's through the roof. I think about some people that I've known that do not genuinely think that they've gotten saved. But they live for God for like a couple weeks, for a month, and the bottom dropped out. So, sanctification, growing in holiness, it's about living like Jesus. Doing the things that He did, saying the things that He said, acting the way that He wants us to act. 1 John 2:6, and this one's right. It says, "He that saith he abideth in Him, ought himself also so to walk, even as He walked." So, who's this talking about? He walked. Who's that?
Jesus.
Jesus, yes, okay. So, if you say that you abideth in Him, which means you're saved, you ought to walk as Jesus walked, right?
Yeah.
So, this is who we are, and this is who we have to be. Now, we're never going to reach Jesus, and we're never going to reach that point where we're Him or we're living like Him. But that's the point. You have a goal that you can never fully reach. You always have more work to do. Even James Gentry, at some point he sinned. I have no idea when it might be, but at some point he sinned. He's not Christ. He's not that high up. We all have more sanctification to do. We all have more work to do in our own lives. I've seen this meme going around, and I'm sorry it's like such horrible quality, but it's like Christians should be Christ-like. And it's like, where's it written though? And he says, it's in the name, Christian. So y'all have heard me say that a bunch of times. I just wanted to add that in there because this makes me chuckle every time I see it. But we're to be like Christ because that's who we are. If you go by the name Christian, it's because you are meant to live this life of being a Christian, of being Christ-like. So, as obedient children, not after the former lusts. Okay. What do you think this means? I know I'm putting a lot of y'all on the spot tonight, but yeah, so what? Aren't you?
It means like if we're obedient to God, we shouldn't like want what we did before we got saved.
Exactly. As obedient children, we are children of God now. We've been saved. And as a believer, as a Christian, you should not want and desire the things that you wanted before. Now, are you going to struggle with maybe like temptation? Are you going to struggle with like maybe some of the same things that you struggled with before you got saved? Yes, absolutely. You know, if Graceland struggles with rage, and you know she likes to throw stuff through windows and stuff like that, and then one day she gloriously gets saved, and she gets really mad that next day. Do you think she's just going to sit there with her arms crossed and be like, I don't want to throw a trash can anymore? No, she's going to want to, but she's going to have something that helps her not do that now. And that's the point. When you get saved, you have a helper now to help you get through this. And I do. And I struggle when I see, and I'm just going to be really honest with you guys tonight. And I struggle when I see people make a profession of faith and there is no absolute change in their life, period. You cannot tell a difference from them as saved or before they got saved. Because there are differences in people. They're changed. There's something different. Who wants to read this verse? Chantel, thank you.
Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature, and all things are passed away. Behold, all things become new.
Yes. So if we get saved, what does it say we are? New creature. It doesn't say that he polishes us up, right? It doesn't say that he takes like the old person and just puts like some wax on us and like a clear coat or something like that and just makes us shine a little bit. New creature is something totally different, right? The old things are dead, they're gone. God is in the business of making everything new, including you. And that process doesn't stop at salvation. And that's where we're getting to with what we've been talking about. He makes you a new creature at salvation. All right? He saves you. You know, the old man is crucified. How many of y'all heard that verse before? The old man is crucified. That doesn't mean that they literally like crucify you and then you pop out a new person out of like the body on the cross or nothing like that. But your old nature is crucified. And you become something new. And when that happens, day by day, you move further and further towards God in the ideal situation. You grow in sanctification, you grow in your holiness, and you grow in your walk towards Jesus. And we do that because He called us. See, this is personal. This isn't something to the entire church all over the world, all through history. He called you individually. And I got to thinking about this today. And I got to thinking about like what He called me from. And I got to thinking about the new creation thing and the personal just salvation and everything like that. And I'm going to be just honest, I got really emotional like at the house today thinking about this, thinking about what God saved me from, what He put to death on the cross that night. And not everybody in this room has a dramatic salvation story. In fact, I dare say most of y'all don't have a really dramatic salvation story. I wish that was the case with me. I wish I'd gotten saved when I was younger and I didn't have this like story of just everything that I went through. But that's my path. And whether He called you at a Bible school, whether He called you in the teen room or a church service or sitting at your home, it's the most special personal thing that will ever happen for you. God personally came to you and said, I want you to come home. I want you to be with me. Man, that's amazing. And that's one reason that like I do what I do, and that's one reason that I'm really passionate about this, is because guys, this is huge. And it's not just to see you get saved, but it's to see you grow in holiness, to grow closer to this God that has called us to salvation. That's why we exist. That's why we live. If it wasn't for this, God would have jerked you out of here the second you got saved. You'd have bowed your head, you'd have said God, and you wouldn't have even finished the prayer, and you'd have been staring Him in the eyes. But He has a purpose for you being here. It's to grow more like Him. It's to tell others. So what this is about is it's about you growing in your relationship to Him. We all have times where we get kind of stagnant, right? Where reading the Bible, it can kind of get to be a chore or a job. Finding that time to pray, even when we're in quarantine and you literally have 24 hours of the day that you have nothing to do to fill, you're still trying to find time to pray and trying to fit that into your schedule. And your relationship with Him and your growth with Him can get stagnant. And you kind of, one day you sit there and you realize, I'm exactly where I was a year ago. Maybe you sit there and you realize, man, I'm actually worse off than I was a year ago, 6 months ago. Your relationship with Him can get stagnant, it can get stale, it can get to be just totally non-existent. But tonight is about seeing and calling you back to the right path. Not this one, but the path where you're going towards Him as fast as possible. You're going towards Him as close as you possibly can. And it's going to start up here tonight. That's what Peter was trying to tell us. That's what Peter was trying to tell the men and women that he was writing to 2,000 years ago. This battle, it's going to start here. You see what it is there's probably a few of y'all in here tonight that are sitting there and you're like, you know what? I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. And I've got bad news for you. You've already lost. Because the moment you say try, mentally you're giving yourself a way out. Mentally you're already saying, well, I'm going to keep going until I hit that first roadblock. I don't know if I can get by it. But someone that's serious about this, mentally, tonight you're going to say, I'm doing it. I'm committing to this. I'm making this decision that I'm going to go and I'm going to do this. I'm going to grow closer to Him. I want to be more like God. So sitting in your seat tonight, you have a decision to make. If you bow your heads and close your eyes,